Why don't we go ahead and get started? Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's been keeping well during these really unprecedented times. I'm Brian Ches, and I co-lead the APN's Philanthropy and External Engagement Committee. I want to start by addressing the terrible murder of George Floyd on May 25th in Minneapolis. This incident really reminds us all of the continued divisions we have in our country and the oppression people of color continue to suffer. The worldwide protests that we've seen over the past week are a reminder that we all need to collectively support each other by voicing our outrage, becoming educated on the history of racism in our country, and taking actions to support communities of color, and most importantly, voting. Look out for an email from us tomorrow with some resources to help better educate yourself and becoming an ally of the Black community. We're really proud to be celebrating our 10th anniversary as an employee resource network. And I'm really excited to conclude our Asian Pacific American Heritage Month programming with this event. I want to welcome JD Chang from Crushing the Myth and our speakers, Kelly Zhang, Angel Pai, and Kai Peter Chang. I'm really looking forward to hearing their stories and having an opportunity to ask some questions in the breakout. Special thanks to Alex Wen for leading this event and to all the volunteers for executing a really great program of events for Heritage Month. The APN's vision is to support the bank's efforts to attract and develop and retain talent, facilitate personal and professional growth through mentoring and networking opportunities, and creating a community for those interested in Asian culture to share knowledge, experiences, and foster cross-cultural communications. If you're interested in joining the APN or becoming a volunteer, please contact any of the committee leads or find us on the internet. I'll hand it over to JD to moderate the session. Thanks a lot.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Brian, and thanks Credit Suisse for having us. We are a Asian American speaker series called Crushing the Myth. I'll be your moderator today, and what that means is I'll lead us through the program. Crushing the Myth, just a couple quick seconds. Crushing the Myth was started with the mission to share Asian American stories and perspectives with a global audience, and also to connect Asian Americans and allies to each other. And more than ever now, we feel a need for sharing perspectives and viewpoints in solidarity across just everyday life. Today we have an amazing program. We've got 3 awesome speakers. The way that we kind of do these virtual events is these speakers have spoken at a past Crushing the Myth event in the past on a particular topic. So we're going to play for you each of their videos. And then after each of the videos, there'll be about 10-15 minute opportunity to ask the speakers who are here live question and answer, so live Q&A. So I'll do the moderation for today. And when we get to the Q&A portion, if you have a question, just go ahead and click the hand raise button. If you see on your Zoom screen, there's a participants view. You can raise your hand via the participants view. And when you do that, we'll be able to spotlight you and have you ask your question. All right, so I'll repeat this a couple more times before we get to the Q&A. But to kick off the event, we usually like to play a really quick 2-minute, what we call a sizzle demo for Crushing the Myth to just kind of show you what we're passionate about and what we do as an organization. So let's go ahead and play that sizzle video. I myself, I like to be bold, but mostly I want to just own my identity and not accept it. Whether someone is actually crushing it as a mono minority, or they're in a field in which they want to crush the mono minority myth, I think that we're all Asians in America, and we got something to say.
My fellow Asian Americans and crush all those boxes and the label.
It's just getting out of the comfort zone and also wanting circles in a way that you push the boundaries, right? You don't fit the conformity. You don't just jump on the bandwagon, but it's something that you can show up and you can speak your voice, own it, take it, eat it.
Getting your son or daughter to go to grad school in their 30s is like, that's the Asian mom half-court shot. Just as the buzzer is about to go, they're like, one more chance to be a good doctor. It's not gonna go in. But they're like, well, I've got to shoot my shot,
I screamed, I love you to her, and there was a pause, and she stared at me. She didn't really say anything other than that, but she talked to my father as if nothing else happened and just stopped screaming at me.
Why the hell do we buy into the myth in our Asian culture and society at large that things like depression, anxiety, OCD, and all these other neurochemical imbalances are weakness, are personal flaws? It is a myth that is completely false.
We weren't being seen, our stuff is being seen. So again, our stuff is cool, we ourselves are not cool.
Basically, in sum, I would like to say, Hollywood, don't fuck this up, because I am watching you. Thank you.
I love, it's a collection of Asian American speakers. Everyone's got different topics that we can all understand or learn about, and can't wait for the next series.
Okay, cool. So that's a little bit about crushing the myth. And again, so today we're going to watch 3 of the past speakers' videos, and then they're also here live for Q&A after each video. So I'm really excited to introduce these speakers. The first one is Kelly Zhang. Kelly currently works in tech, focusing on data analytics software. Outside of her full-time job, she has a wide array of side hustles, which include running a Pan-Asian nonprofit, food influencer, event planner, and more. So we're gonna watch her video first. This is something that she had done before at a live Crushing the Myth event, and then we're gonna do a Q&A afterwards. Everyone, here's Kelly Zhang.
My name is Kelly Zhang, and just look at this one line at a time, but I am a customer success manager at a business intelligence firm. I am also a VP of Ascend. So for those of you who do not know what Ascend is, it's a nationwide organization spanning around 60,000 members, focused on empowering the Pan-Asian community to overcome the bamboo ceiling and mono-minority label. I am also an Instagram influencer, micro-influencer, as a foodie, helping restaurants and brands. I also created a consulting training program, really focused on case study methodology. I'm also an events planner for nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and other social gatherings. I do a lot of ad hoc speaking events such as this, where I talk about a variety of different topics spanning from conventions, corporate outings, or any sort of university event. I also do a lot of mentoring of students, specifically in universities. I oversee 8 schools at Ascend, so I have a lot of students under those as well. And I do a lot of ad hoc projects, so things such as hair modeling, which is actually the picture that you saw earlier is a hair modeling picture, video editing, producing, and photography. So to throw some numbers at you, I work about 100 plus hours a week, so it is quite a bit. And to really help you visualize it, this is what my Google Calendar looks like. And this actually does not include anything from my full-time client-facing job. So you can just imagine from what I do as a CSM, there's a lot more going on here. So clearly, I am busy AF. And what I'm here today is to really talk to you about how I manage all of this, but then also maintain mental sanity and not really burn out throughout the process. And in order for me to do so, I have established 3 rules for myself to get me through all of this. Rule number 1 is I do conduct a periodic evaluation of my work. Every now and then, I'll sit down and take a look at everything that I'm doing and reflect. And from my reflection, I develop these questions. So the questions go, does this make me happy? Well, how does it make me happy? What are the pros and cons? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Am I doing this for the right reason? Am I getting a return on the effort invested? Is the path forward clear or uncertain? Is this making me a better person? And does this help me achieve my ultimate goal? So I developed these questions in this framework really from a lot of toxic work environments, challenging team situations, under-resourcing on certain projects, and all spectrums of my experience. And I think a really good example of this framework being applied would be actually for my nonprofit Ascend. So I'm actually celebrating my 8th year anniversary this month, which is super exciting. So, just to run through this real briefly through using Ascend as an example. So Ascend, yes, Ascend is an organization I've been involved with for such a long time, and it's consistently made me happy, and it's made me happy because using my own unique skill set, I'm able to empower university students to become change agents for the Pan-Asian community. The cons of Ascend would be it is very time consuming. As you can see, I dedicate about 10 to 15 hours per week on just a nonprofit on the side. And sometimes there is a lack of resourcing and support from other teams. But the pros of seeing my students succeed far outweighs those cons. Is the path forward clear or uncertain? I would say, personally for me, at my VP role, it is very clear. I know exactly what I do, and I also know what the next step is while having the support of my team. And is this making me a better person? So to me, I do believe Ascend is making me a better person because through my work with the Pan-Asian community, I'm able to help individuals, whether it be the masses or just one person. So I would say Ascend gets a check mark on every single question. But oftentimes, we don't really get a chance to take an opportunity to really reflect on what we're doing. We always get bogged down sometimes and really focus on the wrong things. And the ability to really get some clarity around what we're doing is sometimes lost. So by applying these questions and asking myself periodically on the different things that I'm doing, it really helps me understand where I need to stay and where I need to get out. Rule number 2. Is identifying a source of energy. So for some people, it could be Netflix, it could be going on a hike, it could be cooking, shopping, video games, whatnot. A lot of my friends actually call me a hyper extrovert, which means I need massive, massive amounts of social interaction. But given my limited time, I actually have to make sure I place out my schedule, and this is how my schedule falls. So for family time, I give them Sunday early morning or afternoon, as well as I get them one dinner throughout the workday. Both my parents work in New York City. My dad actually works in the same block as me, which is pretty nice. And then they live in Jersey, so that's why I always make sure that I at least see them once a week. Next goes into my friends. So Thursdays and Saturdays are reserved for my friends, but given the limited time that I have, I do prioritize what kind of interactions I have with my friends. Over time, especially relating to my hustles, I'm very busy, but then I do receive a lot of negative comments from those around me and those that I meet, especially associating because I am a young Asian female. So I do hear some biased comments, and through that, I always say this: there are 7.5 billion plus people on this planet, so why get bogged down by the negative ones? And through that had led me to start prioritizing my interactions with my friends. So my list is as follows. Friends from out of town or out of the country are a top priority. Most of my closest friends don't reside in New York City. They're out in Asia, they're in Pennsylvania, Texas, or California. So they're not in New York City often, and whenever they are, I clear my calendar completely for them. The second one would be birthday parties and celebrations. So these are events that don't typically happen that frequently within the year, maybe once or twice per individual, and usually hold some significance, so I keep them at second. Third is my 20 closest New York City friends. So these are individuals that reside in New York City, somewhere in the audience, and they're the ones who I've formed a very deep and intimate bond with and always have my back. Fourth is friends leaning more towards acquaintances. So these are individuals who I not necessarily form that really, really deep bond with, but I do have a really good time hanging out with them, going out for drinks and going to parties. So they're on their way also working towards number 3. And the last one is the large gatherings with more strangers than friends. So these are like your happy hour mixers, social events, large gatherings from all these like TAP, AEM, all those kind of groups. So these large gatherings where I don't necessarily know a lot of people, and it's a good way for me to really meet people. While I do love to meet new people and make more friends, my time is limited, so that's why I want to make sure that every single interaction I have is valuable and meaningful. The more meaningful the interactions, the easier it is actually for me to be able to gain more positive energy to keep going with the work that I'm doing. And finally, this is the one where I get a lot of laughs at, but when I'm single, this is my dating schedule. So I only allow dates on Saturday evenings to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evenings, which I know are not the typical times, but given that the first two are my priorities, my dates have to be okay with that. But of course, if the dates do go well, they can get some of that Thursday to Saturday time. So it works. I mean, my boyfriend's out in the audience right now, so it worked. But this is how I prioritize my time. It is very limited, but I want to make sure that every single moment spent is a very meaningful interaction. And the third rule is very simple, very basic. It is the maintaining of your basic human needs. And for me, that is sleep and fitness. So I only need 4 hours of sleep. Anything less, it's going to need some coffee. But as long as I get 4 hours, I can fully function. And is that crazy? Okay, is that crazy? But yeah, so as long as I get 4 hours, I can function like a normal human being. Anything less, we'll need some coffee. In terms of fitness, I do try to at least box or Muay Thai once every day. If I can't, then I'll make sure to incorporate some sort of workout in my office. It sounds simple enough, but I'm pretty sure a lot of us do struggle with this to a degree. These rules really do stem from a firm belief that I have, and that is money comes and goes, but time is something that you'll never get back. Every single interaction, every single moment I dedicate to work, I want it to be very meaningful. In the past, when I was working my last two jobs, those two jobs actually made me work 100+ hours a week alone, not including all of the side hobbies and things that I do as well. And that resulted in depression, hitting rock bottom. I was hurting my relationships with my friends. I was very visibly stressed and isolating myself. But ever since I started applying this framework, I've been able to reevaluate, start a new job, regain my friendships, and have an overall more positive look on life, and I rarely feel lonely. As simple and as basic as the work-life balance concept is, oftentimes we don't really get that time to really sit down, reflect, and prioritize. And a lot of us don't understand really the toll that our schedule can have on our own mental well-being. So these rules are what I do in order to make sure that everything I'm doing, I still have the energy to keep going forward with a positive outlook. And I challenge everyone here to make your own rules, be proactive, not reactive to burnout, and go have a date with your Google Calendar. Thank you.
All right, one of my favorite videos. Kelly, are you out there?
Hey, yes I am.
Hey Kelly, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm flustered from watching myself. Never get over that.
Okay, so before we get into the Q&A, one, just awesome video again, great job. And for everybody out there in the Zoom audience, if you have a question for Kelly, then go ahead and click the participants box, which will allow you to raise your hand. So I'll keep looking and see, and if you've got a question, then we'll spotlight you. But I've got a quick question to get us started. And so Kelly, we know each other, and I love your talk. How are you maintaining your Google Calendar with COVID now? Like, how does that work with COVID?
Yeah, so I actually get this question a lot. It's harder. Work-life balance is harder, and I think everyone's facing that because you're home. There's really no schedule, so you don't really turn it off at a certain time. And specifically for me, work has gotten 4 times crazier. Just to kind of simplify my job is as a customer success manager for a business intelligence tool. I manage customers, which is essentially managing the revenue for a firm. And as a lot of businesses are struggling and having a hard time with their spending and all their cost cutting and whatnot, my company's looking to my role a lot to make sure that we don't lose revenue. So as a result of that, I'm working a lot more than I ever was before. So that has been a challenge. But at the same time, a lot of my roles and a lot of my side gigs were things that I need to physically be places. Like, I'm not hosting a party anymore for my event planning. For the food influencing stuff, it's hard to go to restaurants and post about them and things like that. But I think during this entire time, been trying to find new ways to be able to continue doing what I'm doing, or at least making sure it's still floating somehow. So now, for example, the food influencing, it's going to do home cooking and also supporting businesses that are struggling and tying to whatever other initiatives there are. So I would say it's gotten busier. The calendar is a little bit harder to manage, and also there's a little bit of adjustment, but I think that goes with everyone too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I am always amazed how you can stay with that framework, right? That discipline
Yeah.
to be able to do that. I think I saw a hand raise. Alex, were you gonna ask a question?
Hey JD, you actually asked my question, so that was a great answer.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Well, so Kelly, now what is your favorite social media platform that you use for a lot of your micro influencer or influencer work?
Yeah. So I use two mainly. It's Instagram and it's LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is more for like the professional business. So anything that's related to diversity and inclusion topics, my TED Talks, all that kind of stuff, that was all sourced through LinkedIn. And I use that as a platform just to talk about things a little bit more business related, also tech and D&I. So that's what I use LinkedIn for. On the food influencing side, I use my Instagram, Kelly Eats with a Z, and that's just to upload all of these recipes, unboxing, and things with other restaurants. I actually have some partnerships with some omakase places in New York City coming out as well, so I use that a lot. My personal Instagram is really for my friends, but then I end up using it a lot more for my D&I conversations as well, so I take a lot of my LinkedIn stuff and put it there. But those are the main two platforms I use.
And are you still doing work with Ascend right now?
Yeah, so that video was shot, I think, in October, and now I'm still with Ascend. It's going to be 9 years with them soon. And yeah, if anything with Ascend, so within Ascend, me and a co-VP manage about 51% of the membership, which is the student base. And there's so much uncertainty with a lot of students. So right now, what we're trying to do is create programming around how can we help prepare them for the economy once everything is all over. So we're talking to our 8 schools, our 8 universities, getting a lot of speaker events, kind of talking about trends, skill sets, and also creating these workshops for them so they can develop certain skills during this time where they have a lot of free time as well. So Ascend's actually a lot busier as well.
But everything is kind of moving virtual, right? No?
Yeah, everything's virtual through Zoom. I've been using Zoom for a very long time, and I'm a big fan. So we've been using it at Ascend for a while, especially because some of our schools are not within New York City. They're they're Cornell or Binghamton, so they're upstate. So we had to do virtual anyways. But a lot of the sessions are virtual. We're finding ways to stay, to keep on being interactive, keep on communicating with our students, because a lot of them are very unsure about what to do. And actually half of them are international students. So they're really, really unsure. So we're having a lot of good conversations around what the future looks like and how can we help them.
Yeah, well, and kind of along that same line, I mean, you are very disciplined with the Google Calendar, but I like, even for me, there are a lot of times in which when I get up, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this today, or or maybe at the end of the week, I'm like, man, where did the time go? Like, I wanted to do all these things, like I couldn't get them done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have friends that come to you for advice on, I don't know, like how to get more stringent or disciplined towards their calendar?
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw this as a meme once, but then it really hit hard. So I always talk about it and share with my friends. But a lot of people are just like, we're having a hard time just because we're home. We just rather be in bed, watch Netflix. There's all these shows out and whatnot. And then I'd not fight back, but I just like speak right back to them saying, for a while you've been complaining to me about wanting to do certain things and you haven't, and before your excuse was you haven't had time. Now you have all the time in the world. So it's really not time that's the issue, is motivation. And then that usually kind of clicks for them. They're just like, she has a point. Like, I have the time now, so there's no excuses. I'm saying, like, right now all I'm hearing is excuses, and there's something I can do unless you motivate yourself. So there's I forgot exactly how the meme worded it, but it was around that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is so true. Like, you have all the time in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a question for Kelly, we've got a few minutes left before we go to the next speaker. Go ahead and click on the raise the hand. And Kelly, how are you doing in New York right now? How's everything going?
It's good. I'm in a little shoebox of an apartment. I'm stuck in my room with another person, which my boyfriend's like chilling around somewhere. And the rest of the apartment's used for my other roommate who works at NBC in the news. So we turned that into like a little studio. So it's one of those moments where I'm like, wow, New Yorkers are tough for sticking it out in tiny little apartments. I kind of miss living in the suburbs. So I was considering that at one point, but I think overall it's been good. I live near Union Square. So a lot of the protesting is there. Everything is boarded up. So it looks a little apocalyptic, but I'm overall, personally, I'm fine because I have a job that still needs me, and I'm pretty busy, so it's good. But I think, the state of the world is a different story, and my thoughts on that's a different story too.
Sure. Well, even being an extrovert, like being somebody who is normally out and about, like how have you been able to deal with almost staying in for such a long period of time?
Yeah, a lot of my friends got worried for me. They were periodically checking in. It's like, is she okay? Because she can't physically see people. But it's been fine. I think, most of my friends were not in New York City anyway, so I've always been used to making that virtual connection just to stay in touch. So now it's just applying to my New York City friends. And there's always a temptation, like, we've been quarantined for so long, we should see each other and whatnot. So there's always been that temptation, but we found ways to kind of keep ourselves entertained and busy. So it looks like I have a gaming setup, and that's because it is a gaming setup. So that's also been very helpful.
Is that what you're up to?
Yeah. So one thing that a lot of my friends have been pushing me towards is streaming, because I play a lot of video games and I've been for a while. So they're like, you should stream. It's like a new source of income. Everyone's home. It'd be great. So I don't think I'm going to go there yet because I'm too busy. But that's also a way just to keep in touch with friends, finding activities and hobbies to do together. A lot of things that were originally like board games that require physical interaction have all been moved to online. So it's still, there's still a way to do it. It's not, as personal, but at least you still get to talk and see them.
Awesome. Okay, well, so for everybody out there, you will actually get an opportunity at the end of the program today. We're going to do what we call breakout sessions. So each of the speakers will stick around for like 5-10 minutes, and we're going to split the audience into 3 groups, and you'll have a little bit more intimate time with each speaker. So we'll hold out for that. Kelly, thanks so much again for the video and doing everything that you're doing. How can people keep up with you? What are you doing next?
What am I doing next? So right after this, we have this thing called a Zen Cafe. So we have one of our board directors just talking about what's going on with the students and everything like that. So a lot of my activity that I post about, it's on my Instagram, it's on my LinkedIn. So you can follow me on either platform, but I have a lot of stuff going on with my nonprofit, which, might be of interest to people in the audience as well.
For sure.
So that's one way to keep in touch.
Yeah, and we'll have we'll have everybody's Instagram handles up on the event image, which we'll put up at the end of the program as well. Yeah. Kelly, thank you again. Round of applause. Be well, be safe, and please stick around for the breakout stuff.
Yeah, will do. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, see you. Awesome. So that was Kelly Zhang sharing with us her Google Calendar and how she manages her super busy schedule. Let's go right into the next speaker. So kind of switching up a little bit. The next speaker is Angel Pie. And Angel Pie is an actor, TV host, entrepreneur, jewelry designer, model, and humanitarian. She co-founded Keep Breathing, a nonprofit developed and evolving COVID response that 3D designed, manufactured, and donated over 20,000 ear savers and ventilator splitters to medical workers on the front line. So let's take a look at Angel's talk about her nonprofit, Keep Breathing.
Hi, my name is Angel Pie. I am the co-founder of Keep Breathing, a nonprofit organization started a mere 2 weeks ago in response to COVID. I'd like to share with you a little bit of the origin story, what has transpired, and what we are doing today. About 2 weeks ago, like many of us, I was out of job, banging my head against the wall, wondering, wow, how long is this going to last? The fear, the anxiety, the lack of knowledge, so much fear and confusion and really helplessness. And one night, I came across a post on Facebook. It was a 3D design for a ventilator splitter, 3D printing, by a designer named Philip Sweeting, upstate New York. I saw this design and realized this is such a simple solution to the lack of ventilators available right now. Yes, we're going to be producing more. Yes, I'm sure more will be coming. But what about right now? And I just kept thinking, well, I have a lot of friends in industries, design industries, people who work for tech companies. A lot of people have access to 3D printers. So I just took it upon myself to first contact Philip. I found him on Instagram. He had an open source file, and I said, has this been tested? He says, yes, it's been tested in a medical school upstate. Okay. It's been tested in artificial lungs. Okay. So then I reached out to as many people as I could think of. This is at 11 p.m. at night when I came across these files, by the way. Messaging everyone who I knew had access to 3D printers, and then blasting it out on Facebook. Who has 3D printers? Who wants to help me print this and deliver it to the hospital? By 3 a.m., I had already gotten a message out to my friend at the mayor's office. I had gone out to a fleet of printers now available on standby to print. And then I contacted the first person whose post I had seen. And I said, will you help me print this? Let's get one print out first and test this out in the hospitals here. I have a doctor who's willing to test it on the ventilators in New York City. I want to make sure it fits. By 3 a.m. it was all set. And Will, who was the first on board, he was like, I'm already printing. I'm on it. And it was amazing because it took everyone, their willingness to jump on board and this idea I had, why don't I organize this movement, printing and hospital? Little did I know all the things that was gonna, all the hurdles we were gonna hit in the next couple of days as well. By day 2, I had joined forces with another friend who was working on a different project. And then he's like, I want to work on the splitters too. And it's like, well, why don't we merge our resources? I have contacts, you have contacts. I have resources, you have resources. Let's do this together. Next thing I know, we formed Keep Breathing. And now, by day 3, I had over 100 people message me committed to printing. We had 100 printers sitting there waiting for my go to print. Meanwhile, I was calling all my doctor friends, hospitals, contacts in the government, anyone I could possibly think of, to make a list of people who wanted these ventilator splits. These splitters are, to be very firm, we know it is a temporary solution. It is a last resort, ultimate last resort. There's a lot of cons that come with a ventilator splitter. We know what the pros are, right? If you are lacking a ventilator, you can split one machine into 2, possibly 4, possibly more. But there's so many dangers associated with it. However, it has already been done. In the Vegas shootout, hospitals actually had split a ventilator, more than one, for 6 hours, prolonging patients while more ventilators were arriving in the hospitals. Worldwide, it's been done. There's a lot of YouTube videos of doctors showing other doctors how to split a ventilator. What we simply did was come up with a design and a valve for each outlet to help the doctors control the airflow a little better. But we're fully aware this is a last resort, simply to buy you time until a new ventilator arrives, which is literally a matter of life and death for some people. Instead of you trying to MacGyver a splitter right now in the state of emergency as you're trying to save lives, here's a box of splitters you can use. One-time use only, but you can use. It will provide you more if you need more. But here they are, and I hope you don't need them. So that was our intention. Then I ended up having over 10 countries worldwide message me as the word kept spreading worldwide. And it sparked other people around the world to do the same thing, what I was doing, which was simply organizing, arranging, getting printers to print these splitters and sending them to the hospitals. Now, 1 week in, we started to realize, before we started sending it to the hospitals, we were having a lot of legal issues, discussions. Well, wow, what's going to happen to, what can we do to protect all of us? All the over 100 volunteers who are part of our organization now. And of course, our team members, my amazing team members who have been working 20 hours like me nonstop for the first week to try to make this happen. We had to figure a way out. So then we started raising money through a GoFundMe to take care of legal fees, to take care of supplies, logistics, knowing also the funds we have, we can develop other projects in which we are doing right now, which was so exciting. We were able to reach our goal in 2 days. And now we have, on top of ventilator splitters, we have, it's called a PAPR, which is a powered air purifier respirator. Now that is for the doctors on the front line. It's a hood, a mask, attached to a motor pumping filtered air. And that is the ultimate protection for doctors on the front line. They already exist. It costs $2,000 to buy per set. We got together engineers, designers, product designers, and now we're creating them ourselves for $200 or $300. So we're using the funds we generated to buy the supplies, manufacture these PAPR, and then donating to the hospitals on the front line as well. And what was amazing is, my question really in the beginning was, okay, do you have a printer? No. Do you know, do you want to find more people with printers? Do you want to help me contact hospitals? Do you want to do this? What are your skill sets? Someone says, well, I'm a writer. Great, you can help us write something. I'm a web designer. Great, you can help us build a website. All these things unfolded. Lawyers offering pro bono. All these things unfolded because everyone was on the same mission to help save lives. Everyone from all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all skill sets worldwide, messaging us, contacting us. How can I help? I have these contacts, I have all these contacts. And it just kept growing. And we kept evolving, we kept adapting. Started with just me. But then I joined forces with Tim. And we expanded into this full-blown nonprofit. So we have been in touch with the mayor's office, governor's office, senator's office, doctors, hospitals, doctors on the front line, directors of hospitals, scientists. What I've heard from a lot of people who were not able to either print or donate directly, they have said that this organization, us people, all of us doing this, gave them hope and joy during a time that was very dark, very bleak, very scary. And this was a light in a tunnel. And just simply knowing that, and that I was a part of this amazing mission and group of people who were willing to just help. That was enough for me. And I wanted to share this little story with you today. And I hope you are all staying safe and sane. And we'll get through this together.
Okay, awesome. Angel, are you out there?
Yes, I am. Hi, JD. Hi, everybody.
Fantastic talk.
Thank you.
Let me start off a little bit by asking, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background, what you've done in the past and acting and hosting and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. So my background is, as a career, I'm an actor, TV host. I currently host for PBS All Arts, where I cover humanitarian stories associated with all forms of entertainment, on the red carpet, galas, humanitarian stories affiliated with everything with the arts, as well as I'm a model, I'm a jewelry designer, I have my own company, and always everything that I've done has been in a line with my humanitarian drive. And I have I grew up studying medicine. Since I was a child, I wanted to be a doctor. So, everything I've done, I think really, really speaks to the way I see it how this organization started, is that everything led up to this point. All the skill sets I have acquired over the years, being a public speaker, being a leader, being a president of the student council of every class, whatever it is, I was trained for this, to put all my resources together to build and start this nonprofit as fast as it came together. And just a quick recap, actually, this video was filmed about, I want to say 2 months ago. So our nonprofit's actually 2.5 months old. So we've all been in quarantine for about 3 months. This started 2 weeks after. And, you know, really by day 5, we had over 400 volunteers worldwide. 400 volunteers in America alone. I'm not even counting the 10 countries that jumped in to want to do the same in their countries. And yeah, up to date, we have donated over 20,000, well, probably 25,000 by today, actually, ear savers and ventilator splitters all over the United States. Luckily, we haven't had the need for ventilator splitters because, you know, we've plateaued and things are recovering just a little bit, although with the current protests, there's been a spike, unfortunately, again, in COVID. So having said that, we are developing PAPR, which I talked about in the video, and we've evolved, you know, so much from even that video, and the new designs are phenomenal. We literally have NASA scientists working on it with us. So we're excited to test those prototypes and then hopefully donate them as soon as we can.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, and you know, we know each other pretty well, and I know the reasons why you've started this nonprofit. Where do you see it going? Like, what's your vision for it?
Well, I like to think that we're not going to be necessary anymore. That's what my vision is. I had not intended. I've always worked a lot with nonprofits through my own avenues, but I never really intended on starting one. And this was a COVID response. It was a response because I knew I had to protect all the volunteers. So we had to start an organization to protect everybody because we are essentially donating medical supplies, equipment. So there's a lot of legal issues involved with that. Now, we are evolving, which means in the very beginning, we were created in response to the lack of ventilator splitters. Well, ventilators, period. Then as we created the splitters, ventilators became more available. Great. We did donate PPE as well, masks, money to hospitals to buy the doctors' meals because restaurants were closed and they couldn't get a good meal. We started developing, you know, our friends were messaging me about how they were getting sores and cuts into their face. You see all these pictures of bruises on their face from wearing the mask. The masks were never meant to be worn for long hours like that, let alone like the 20 hours a lot of these doctors are wearing. So we realized, well, you know, we came up with this little ear saver, we call it ear saver. So it's actually a plastic piece that goes in the back of the mask that removes the pressure and the pain from their ears, and thus kind of migraines, or some migraines were prevented. So we kept evolving. And right now, because in a long term, we are expecting a lot of professions, not just the medical profession, to have PAPR, it's called PAPR, which is a filtered air breathing in and out of their kind of environment within the hood. So that allows for people to be much closer to each other. So we're expecting that to be kind of a norm, a new norm, if you will, for a period of time until we really have a cure or vaccination or anything like that. So we're evolving, and I'd love to think that one day we won't be necessary anymore, or but it's all up. We're just trying to stay in the moment and address all the issues that are coming our way.
What are some of the, and I know that you know, the nonprofit has been reaching international as well. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you are facing on any logistics side of things?
Well, so internationally, I'm not managing them because well, simply it wouldn't make sense. there's delivery issues and things like that. And because we have an open source file, everything we've ever designed, we made it open source, which means you can literally go to our website, keepbreathing.world, and access all the designs we ever came up with. And you can 3D print them. We also offer other designs that are available, that you can use using products that are already made, like plumbing tools and things like that, that are readily available if you don't have access to a 3D printer. So these are all things that we've addressed on an international level. So I send the files off to them, and I just wish them good luck. And in terms of the States, logistically, we haven't had an issue, which was fantastic. We were able to have a GoFundMe that took care of our logistic costs, like delivering, mailing, things like that. I'll personally deliver if I can, otherwise we'll ship it. So, it's a matter of picking up all the prints from all over the States. And then, it arrives with us, we check everything, quality check everything, and then we deliver it to the hospitals. So that's what we've been doing. In the beginning, really, I think over a month ago, probably I'll say a month into it, we really were hitting the wall because of legal issues. And because the law was passed protecting doctors from malpractice lawsuits, we were able to have the doctors sign a hold harmless for us, which means, really legally, they can't, anyone can sue anybody. We can sue anybody. There's nothing stopping you from suing anybody. Right. However, a hold harmless would mean that we would be under the protection of the hospital or the doctors. And because they are protected from malpractice at this time and associated with COVID, unless it's blatant negligence, then they could kind of have a protection under that kind of umbrellas over us as well. We did actually also join a 501c3. We are under a larger foundation now, so we are protected as well. And really, it's not that, it's America. So we really just have to protect all the volunteers, hundreds of volunteers who really are doing this out of, their good heart, their goodwill. And you just never know what could be lumped into a lawsuit. Literally, someone passes away at the hospital and the family decides to sue the hospital for whatever reason. And because we were someone who donated anything to the hospital, we could literally be lumped into their lawsuit. So that was something we were trying to address and protect. But luckily right now, we're fine, we're covered, and we are very much developing our next phase of protection to donate to the hospitals.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that everybody, especially people that are volunteering, are. Yeah,
we're all I'm a volunteer, so yeah, we had to make sure everybody's protected.
Tell us about one positive, reaction from anybody that you've donated or delivered to.
When we first donated, I'll never forget, the first delivery was to Elmhurst Hospital, because they were one of the first that really inspired me to jump in on this whole thing, because they were hit the hardest in the beginning. And I made sure that as soon as we had parts available, they were the first ones we delivered to. And just the gratitude, the joy of them receiving it, including the ear savers we gave them. Yeah. They were so grateful that I was so humbled by it, because they were the ones, and they still are the ones, putting themselves on the front line every day. And I think a lot of it was that they felt like they were alone battling it. They didn't really have resources available. The hospitals weren't necessarily providing their, PPE, and they were giving them the resources. So they were so grateful that that people like us were stepping up. And it was literally a session of back and forth for 5 minutes, them saying, thank you. I'm like, no, thank you. They're like, thank you. No, I'm like, no, really, thank you. So it was literally back and forth. And I remember just having tears because I wish I could do more. It was what else can I do for you? But I knew that they also didn't have the capacity to tell us what more they need really it was like up to us to listen, up to us to say, okay, I see these issues, let me think of something. I see this, let me think of something. You know, they're so deeply involved in this world, 20-hour days of trying to save lives. They have no capacity to step outside and go, hey guys, can you guys think of this and this and this? You know, it was up to us. So that really was the most rewarding thing, to really just have that kind of interaction with the doctors. And of course, to have people come to me all around the world saying to me, thank you for doing what you're doing. You are giving us hope. And for me, I mean, I was working 20-hour days for the first month. Everybody on my team, maybe they're not as insane as I am. I just put all my energy into all of this. It was a chase against time. So I was working 20-hour days. And they would say to me, thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's giving me hope and a spark that people like you, all of you, are doing something to help. And it was a unifying mission. So that was incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for everything that you've done and that you are doing. Well, definitely please stick around for the breakouts that we're going to do. And then, you know, tell us real quick, what is next up for you? What are you thinking about? What are you working on?
Well, actually, in a couple of hours, I'm actually giving a keynote induction speech to honor students. So I'm very, very excited and honored to do that, because the person who invited me, who's principal of that school, of that whole region, he invited me. He used to be my high school teacher in Stuyvesant in New York City, who actually changed my life. He was the one that pushed me to write my memoir and pushed me into drama, taking his drama class as well, and which really completely shifted my path. So, and then to have him invite me to be a keynote speaker, to really call to action these wave of young men and ladies and men who really are our future. I'm very, very, very excited about that, especially in this environment that we are currently in with the COVID, with the injustices. I am so pumped to rally them up. So that's just in a couple hours, and that's all I'm trying to focus right now.
I'm sure you're going to be great. So best of luck with that. And thank you again for everything. And
Thank
we'll
you all
see
for having me.
Yeah, see you in a little bit.
In a little bit.
Cool. Awesome, everyone. That was Angel. Give a round of applause for Angel. And we're going to move right along to our third and final speaker. Shifting gears a little bit, our third speaker is Kai Chang. And Kai Chang is a former Wall Street investment banker. He's now first responder and disaster preparedness instructor and executive director of Citizen Medic Foundation. In his video, he talks about philanthropy, and it's titled Wall Street Hustler Turns to Philanthropy, an Asian American Robin Hood Story. So everyone, let's check out Kai Peter Chang's video, Wall Street Hustler Turns to Philanthropy.
There was a saying that one of my friends said I was very fond of, that if you come from the ghetto, either you're going to make it all the way to the top or you'll just stay in the ghetto. There's no middle class. It's like, why even bother being middle class? And I think that really fueled a lot of my decisions. I really, really wanted a job in investment banking. And if you were of age in the time I was growing up, the movie Wall Street was very iconic. I dreamed of the day that I too could issue bonds to buy and sell companies and live in New York and control billions of dollars in capital. It was an incredible fantasy, right? Unlimited wealth. The problem was, I didn't have the right background. I-banks would rather hire from the bottom of the class at Harvard than the top of the class anywhere else. And as someone who went to UC San Diego, like, your school isn't going to get you in. But where there's a will, there's a way. And it turned out one of the happy accidents was that when I was 18 years old, my parents bought me as a graduation present, kind of a gag, kind of a graduation present, 1 share of Microsoft. And so when I was in college, I would go around telling people that I co-own a business with Bill Gates, which is technically true. If you own 1 share of Microsoft, you are a capital partner in a joint venture with Bill Gates. But the other thing also that owning a share does is it gets you an invitation to the annual shareholders meeting. And this was really valuable. Any share you own gets you that invite. After graduating college, not securing a job immediately, my family lived in San Francisco area, so I bought one share of stock in the Bay Area's top 20 companies. And with that one share, that got me invitations to about 20 shareholder meetings every single year. And I attended. I showed up in the room. I listened to all the CEOs do their presentations, and I was definitely the youngest guy in the room. I was definitely the poorest guy in the room, but I was in the room. I was in the room of people that in the exact industry I wanted to be in. And it just became a matter of talking to people, introducing yourself, presenting in a not weird way, and hey, we would love to have you at blah, blah, blah company, and that's exactly what happened. At an Oracle shareholder meeting, someone took a shine to me, we were talking, and he goes, and what are you doing here? Oh, I'm looking after my Oracle interests, you know, all $23 worth or whatever it was at the time. But also, he's like, what are you doing now? I'm looking at a couple of investment banking firms. Really? You know, I went to Harvard Biz Schools, da-da-da-da. Like, you know, here's my card. Send me a resume. I'll make sure he sees, oh, well, thank you very much, sir. And that intro got me on the interview queue, which got me a position at Montgomery Securities, a extremely prestigious investment banking firm in San Francisco. There was an incident when I was in my bank that stood out to me after all these years. One of the managing directors, which is the highest ranking person in an investment banking firm, he had a small family, and tragic story, his eldest son, 11 years old, had some sort of horrible kid cancer, died, just like, it's like one of those heartbreaking things, right? And so being someone, he's processing his grief his own way, he said, I'm gonna do a fundraiser. I'm gonna fund like research to cure the cancer that killed my kid, which is like, okay, it's a very noble cause. So, you know, because he's a banker, I mean, at the managing director level, they're making about $1 million a year. So like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, we're at this restaurant, and every ticket's like $1,000, and he sends an email to everyone in the bank, because everyone else here is at my level, yeah, you're making $1 million, throw 1,000 to like, you know, whatever. And so and he sends an email out, everyone RSVPs typically are other managing directors, VPs, and whatnot. And one of my fellow analyst classmates, he also responded. He bought one of these tickets, $1,000 ticket at 23 years old. And I know what I was making. I know he was making the same salary. I'm like, what are you doing spending $1,000? All of our meals are comp, you moron. But here's the thing I realized. He was the youngest guy he did a smarter version of what I did to get to the bank. He was the youngest guy in the room. And not surprisingly, thereafter, his career took off. That managing director saw him there, and he teared up. There were other people that gave more money, but he knew how much it represented of this guy's salary. So I'm here as well. And obviously he has a selfish agenda, we all do, but it didn't shy him from making that contribution when it was a huge fraction of his paycheck. It got me thinking about my own contributions. A couple years ago when I had a very good year financially, you know, the Exploratorium, a science museum in San Francisco, opened and they had a fundraising campaign. And the major donor category was $10,000, which is like a ton of money. Like, oh, I had a good year, but I was like, oh, it's so much. Grit my teeth and did it. And the other nice thing is I think you have a little acknowledgement that says, here's all of our big donors. There's a list of names. And once you're a major donor, what happens, you also get invited to major donor events. Lots of events in which it's like people that gave, in this case, 10 grand and up. So I got it at the lowest margins. I was in part, again, the youngest person in the room, the poorest guy in the room. But all the important deals were done in the room. And if you look closer at the names, I realize it's hard to tell, but in San Francisco, a place where so many Asian Americans have made so many fortunes, how many Asian names are there? 2. Then mine's one of them. We have so much wealth. I'm not talking about the ones that are struggling. Obviously, take care of yourself. But how many times have we, in our largesse, managed to make a contribution to something and go, oh, you know what, I'll give away money when I'm old and everything is already all settled. And the thing is that part of the glass ceiling we talk about, the bamboo ceiling, is that where are all these deals being done? They're all being done in these locations. The thing is, the price of entry for many people is exactly 10 G's or whatever amount you can afford. We talk about this in terms of, you know, we're being frozen out. It's racism. It's like, no, tons and tons of people want to be CEOs. Tons of people want to be directors. And when they have a committee of who do we choose to promote to be VP, is it the guy with the highest GPA? Oh, it's not fair. I went to Stanford, and this jackass, da-da-da-da, it's some white. And guess what? They knew the white guy because he was out there. He was giving to the campaign. He was volunteering. He was a known presence. And Guanxi works both ways. This is something that I've wanted to encourage for the Asian American community. You know, I gave a talk. You know, I started my own foundation, Citizen Medic, as a volunteer instructor for the Red Cross. And this is something that we struggle with within the Asian American community is why, if you look at Wikipedia's entry on income by race in the US, did you know that Asian Americans actually clear 80,000? Do you know how much the average white household clears? 50K. We're out earning the white man in his own land. And that's averaging in all the Asian Americans that are freshly coming to the country. Their English isn't that good. And yet, if you look at charitable giving, what happens? Right, rock bottom. Let's start giving as if we're at the top of the earning curve. Let's start behaving as if we've won, because in many ways, we already have. Thank you.
All right. Kai, are you out there?
I am here. Let me get my video up and running. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Awesome. Hey, great talk. Always like going back to that video. I think it's pertinent on many levels right now. But please tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, like as I've mentioned in the video, the thing that was interesting as watching the sort of the way that we oftentimes talk about advancement is that these kinds of things, until I did the digging down, I intuitively recognized that we were probably doing pretty well as a demographic. I didn't realize how well until I dug into the actual numbers. And so if things are holding us back, I think a lot of it does come from these sorts of self-inflicted sort of selective cheapness. And the part of the slide that was deleted that I wanted to kind of also share was this notion that we often have this notion that, guanxi is this exotic thing that's done in Asia, that the Chinese are big into relationships. You have to know somebody. And the reality is that that's true everywhere. In India, in Europe, in every part of the world, if you are well connected, you will get further. And so there's a saying I'm sure many of us have heard about how we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if you want to advance your career, you have to find ways to upgrade your company, because the likelihood that you will get further continuing to socialize and do business with the people that you already know is very, very low. No one's going to just recognize you're brilliant, pluck you out of nowhere, and elevate you to become director, CEO, whatever. And if you're a small business owner, you have to make your case to that big client. All those things come from being able to successfully bond and build relationships with people that are further higher than you on the food chain. And so one of the things that people are a little skittish about, but I want to encourage people to think is tactical charity. That it's okay to have both a philanthropic and selfish agenda when you make donations to nonprofits. That exploratorium donation, for instance, $10K was a lot of money, but also it happened to be the minimum threshold to be classified as a major donor. And they also threw lots of events. And so that 10K, most people that 10K got me into invitations to major donor events. And I was the lowest donor in that category. And I was in the room with like $100,000 donors, the founder of Adobe, people that were literal billionaires. And I was easily the youngest person in the room. And the price of admission was 10K. In that one thing alone, I ended up meeting people at these events that ultimately brought me actually consulting revenue that about 5-fold of what I put in. So it already paid for itself and at one level. So some people, they feel self-conscious about it, but the reality is that is a game that's already being played at even higher denominations by people in the billionaire class. And if you're not there, then you will likely stay at whatever rank you are. And sure, there's definitely going to be headwinds. There's racial issues, prejudice and whatnot that does hold it back Asian Americans. I don't doubt that. But let's figure out the variables that are within our control and make sure we're maximizing all of our own opportunities. Because I feel like, if you're pulling a lot of tech entrepreneurs, the tech employees or banking employees, you're earning a good salary, figure out local foundations that do things you already care about and are also already populated by influential people you don't know yet. Figure out ways to make yourself part of communities in which you're the poorest person in the room, the dumbest person in the room. Because if we become the average of the 5 people we spend time with, being the poorest and being the dumbest guy in the room isn't a bad thing. It means that statistically, you're going to start rising up to meet the average of your new peers. Yeah, you might be dragging down their average, but that's their problem.
What did you call it? Tactical philanthropy?
Tactical philanthropy, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, your in your view, you think Asian Americans don't do this as well as other community groups.
Yes. And actually, go ahead. You're going to finish your question. Sorry.
Why?
Oh. I think a lot of it just comes from sort of inherent, a couple of factors. The big part, I think, is that sort of frugality mentality of, most people, we came from parents who left a country with very little assets. I remember when I was young, my father took like a horrible shift for the midnight to 7 a.m. shift at a grocery store. And because when his work ended and he didn't have time to go home, pick me to go to school, so I slept in the backseat of his car. So a lot of us come from these hard scrabble backgrounds. The idea is that always spend the minimum amount to get by. And that mentality, I think, there's sort of that cheapness that ultimately ends up cutting us off in ways that are very important. We think, I'll be charitable when I'm old and rich and I'm about to give away all my money. But the reality is that if you wait till you're old and rich, you don't get, there's a lot of benefits that come from participating in charity, contributing to the right organizations. You're able to see the results of your charitable giving while you're still alive in your youth. And from a selfish standpoint, it also means you can be in the company and share space with others who have a similar mindset. And those people tend to be growth-oriented people who are far richer than you, and ends up serving you. So I think there's a sort of a cheapness that comes from a lot that we inherited from our parents. And I think there's also the mistaken notion that, again, we exoticize the idea of guanxi. We think it's a purely Chinese thing. Well, here in America, it's entirely a meritocracy. The smarter you are, the higher your GPA, the more success you're going to experience. And that's part of the story that our parents told us, and part of the reason why a lot of us came to the US. And so to discover that the guanxi is in fact not a Chinese only thing, that it is in fact universal. Everyone wants to do business with, give their trust to, and promote from people they already know. And so we have to relearn this truth that everyone already knows. I think we came to the States with some false notions of what the opportunity is. It is certainly more meritocratic than it is in China, or a lot of places that are in fact very, very heavily dependent upon being only based on connections. But the idea that this is a pure meritocracy is also false. And I think that granularity is something that if we truly internalize, it will help ambitious Asian Americans who do want to be promoted to VPs and directors and CEOs. That It's not about getting higher GPAs, it's about participating in the community in ways that are both that increases your visibility and also demonstrates that you are a participating member of that community.
Yeah. So Kai, I have one last question for you, and we definitely want to do these breakouts so that the audience can have a more intimate setting with all the speakers. Indeed. So my question to you is how, given the current environment of the United States right now, with the protests, with obviously the racial tensions, and then also with a lot of push towards charitable donations, right? And push towards supporting varying groups. What is your take or advice for Asian Americans who may want to be philanthropic right now?
My general view is take care of your own first. And so it's like, right, you care, if your mother gets a hangnail, that's a big deal. Someone in a distant country dies, it's tragic, but right, like that's normal. We're meant, a lot of times we feel guilty about, all human lives are valuable. It is, but let's be honest with our emotions, that certain people that are closer to us, whether by blood, by your intimate partner, these relationships matter more to us. And so supporting causes that are near and dear to you. My view is that things that are within your zip code, don't give to a national charity that you'll never meet any of the other donors. The donation amount will be a tiny part of a giant multi-million-dollar pile that's going to be spent in ways that you have no idea. Find local organizations that are within walking distance. You can shake the person's hands. You can see what they're doing. These kinds of impacts are more meaningful, and the people that you support will be far more grateful than just a little blip and an automated email message saying, thank you for your $300 donation to the $1 billion fund of blah, blah, blah. I mean, these are things that I think, if you're new to it, start doing a little more research. Think of it like buying a house or looking for a new date or whatnot. You're going to have to do your digging, and you're going to make some mistakes. But in general, I think start the search parameter within one's own vicinity. Start the search parameter within things that are serving either your community. If you have a strong affinity with a particular Asian community, you're Korean, you're Japanese, you're Chinese, find things that serve that particular community. And if you're bilingual, offer translation services, be part of that community in ways that give you access to other people who are also kicking in. And I think money is part of it, but your presence, your face time counts for a lot as well. And that's something you can't do in a big, large national. And I say this as a Red Cross instructor. I'm part of the Red Cross, and it's like there's tons of stuff done at the DC level that it's like I have no idea what they're doing. I used to donate money to the Red Cross. Now I'm like, they've got billions of dollars. I can give them $1,000, which is a ton of money to me, and it'll just be they'll spend that in like half a second. Their annual spend is gigantic. Better to give that $1,000 to a regional foundation that is every dollar is spent on things that have an impact and that your contribution can be acknowledged. Because again, from a selfish standpoint, do you want your contribution? How long does it take for you to earn $1,000? And for them to spend it in a second, send you a perfunctory email, and never even bother acknowledging you in person, it's like, is that really doing you any good? Be a little bit selfish. It's okay to be selfish when you're being also charitable. And I think that dichotomy, that tension, is what keeps people from thinking more clearly on this. Like, oh, if you give to a charity just to attend their fundraiser events and meet celebrities and build your own business, then you're not being really honestly charitable, and therefore you're a bad person. It's like, no, you can do both. Like my exploratorium contribution was, I would say, 80% selfish, 20% philanthropic. It was a museum that turned me onto science when I was a kid, and did help in many ways contribute to my later on financial success. That part, that's the philanthropic part. But the other part was that, wow, there's a lot of people in the industry that I want clients in, and therefore this also gives me access to people that I would never otherwise meet. So that's my general view, is that, I mean, everyone's going to have to do things that are congruent to their own personality, but that's my general advice, is evaluate foundations that are already doing things that are serving your community in ways you care about. And yeah.
Awesome. All right, Kai, thank you so much. So definitely hang around for a sec. So everyone, Kai is our last speaker, and I've got a couple words and to close out before we do the breakouts. I want to just say thanks again to Credit Suisse and all the organizers for inviting Crushing the Myth and our speakers here today. If you enjoyed these talks or these thought leaders and their videos, please go to crushingthemyth.com. We've got over 80 speakers on all sorts of topics. And I think you'll find a trove of interesting perspectives on mainstream, everyday American life from Asian American thought leaders. So we're going to do a very quick group photo, if everybody will bear with us. So Alex and Brian, if you guys wouldn't mind turning on your video, we're just going to do a real quick group photo just to commemorate this. And then I'm going to throw it to Alex to close out the program of the event. And then we'll do breakouts for everybody that wants to stick around to meet the speakers. Okay. So everyone, thanks again for inviting us. And we're super excited and happy to be here today. So on the count of three, I think Sean is going to do a screenshot.
Oh, God.
So everybody get ready. We'll do a couple back-to-back, one professional and one funny. How about that? One fun. Okay, so here we go. Professional first. 1, 2, 3. All right, Sean, I think we're good. And then let's do it. Did you get that?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Let's do a fun one. All right, so on the count of three, we're going to do a fun one. Any fun pose that you want to do. So here we go. 1, 2.
I don't have any ideas. I don't know what to do.
1, 2, 3. Great.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you again for inviting us. And I'm going to throw it to Alex now for some closing words.
Thanks, JD. Thank you to our speakers in Crushing the Myth for joining us today to share their inspiring messages and stories. This past month, I think it's really important that we reflect not just on our own Asian stories, experiences, and history, but also the many stories of racial injustices, especially those we've witnessed this past week and beyond. I've seen the Asian community rally behind each other and support its businesses impacted by the COVID-related racism these past few months. If we can do that for each other, it is even more critical that we do the same and stand in solidarity with the Black community, because racial discrimination affects all of us. We alike have faced various forms of discrimination, still valid and egregious, but nothing as systemic and deadly as the experiences of our Black citizens. You may have heard this term today for the first time, the model minority myth, but what is it? This myth characterizes Asian Americans as a polite, law-abiding group who have achieved a higher level of success than the general population through talent and hard work. I think it's also important to note that the model minority myth also holds the community back. Asians are often seen as hardworking and analytical, yes, but not as leaders ready for C-level roles. Using the stereotype as history shows, Asian Americans have afforded better opportunities, not simply because of educational progress, but in part because they are treated better. This myth not only simplifies and distorts the experiences of Asian Americans, but it is used as evidence to deny or downplay the impacts of racism and discrimination on people of color in this country. This pandemic showed us that economic status gains afforded do not protect Asian Americans from the bigotry that has coincided with COVID-19. And with this in mind, as a community, we must uplift our most vulnerable communities, Black and brown, poor, homeless, elderly, disabled, incarcerated, and many others. We must speak up and stand in solidarity now and after to continue fighting against bigotry and marching towards justice and equity for all. Please look out for an APN email communication tomorrow, which will include educational resources. We will continue to support our BPN community and to engage APN members in furthering these conversations. We're in this fight together. To learn more about the model minority myth, in addition to the resources we will share, we recommend a book called Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling and watching free videos on Crushing the Myth's website. So I know some of you have to get back to work, and we have set aside a few minutes of this segment as a safe space to engage in difficult and courageous conversations about racism, especially this past week's events, or to ask questions about what was said today. It is critical that we process and muddle through our own feelings. We may not have all the answers, but we can listen and acknowledge the realities people are facing. This space is 100% optional and serves solely as a space for us to respectfully gather, share, process, and embrace each other as part of the Credit Suisse community. And this session will not be recorded. So we hope you enjoyed today's events. We have the session recorded and will share with others who could not attend today. On behalf of APN, thank you for your time.
Okay, fantastic.